you
Yeah.
think, I truly believe that this pandemic, and maybe this might be, I guess I won't call it a privilege because I've definitely worked at it, but I've had the luck of being able to embrace this mindset, this being exposed to the people who will help me with this mindset, the mindset of the happiness perspective, and to be able to look at it from a positive point of view, to look at life from a positive point of view. And I could happily say that coronavirus was a good thing. Like obviously people were suffering physical ailments, people died, but at the same time, for all the people who, had to be shut down, for all the people who had to really, change their lives and really had to reorient everything, they experienced a psychological awakening, right? They were left with a complete almost nothing, right? You're left with zero. You have, your work is going to be completely boring and you're not going to spend time on that. Your school, same thing, there's going to be very little, you're going to have a lot of downtime, a lot of time for yourself. And that's the time where, and this is my belief on it, coronavirus, the lockdowns, all these things, they helped so many people because they awoke them. They woke them up, and they really allowed for them to, really think about their lives in this downtime, in this, reorganizing, and be like, wait a second, I have not been living my life to the highest potential that I possibly could. And screw it, I'm going to do it. But then at the same time, I believe that, a majority of the people, because, that's always how it is, a majority of the people, so there's two perspectives, there's that perspective, and a majority of the people are just going to sit there and they're going to be like, 2020 was bad. This was just a waste of a year and all those things. So I do believe that coronavirus was good for a lot of people, but at the same time, it also caused a lot of suffering.
Absolutely. And I think, like you said, there's going to be those people who look at this like, what a waste of a year. And, I can't believe this happened to me. And
Yeah.
And people are getting, whether it's health-wise, they're getting really impacted by this. Obviously, people are losing loved ones. And I mean, I see it every single day. I'm treating these patients as well who are coming off these ventilators, and all the sequelae and impairments that these patients are dealing with after. So it's real. It's out there. I know, not to get political or anything, but it's something that I see every single day. And I've had to pivot in terms of how I treat my patients too. Like, we've done a lot of telehealth. Initially, when this all first happened, we're not allowing individuals to come into their caregivers and loved ones to come into therapy anymore. And psychologically, that has affected my patients. I've had to walk my patients out to the parking lot a lot of the times now because, and just to give my patients' family members an overview of how therapy went. So I've had to pivot a lot, and the profession of PT in general, a lot of my colleagues have had to pivot a lot. But yes, it's been a challenge for everyone. But at the same time, I think how we frame what we're going through will dictate what we see and the lens at which we see. And I like to think of it of, I'm an iPhone guy. I have an iPhone. So like portrait mode on a camera, you go to take a portrait mode picture, you bring into focus what you want to focus on. Everything else in the background gets blurry. So your image is really crystal clear in the portrait mode of what you're looking at. And I think that analogy is good to look at when we're looking at how we look at our daily obstacles, daily challenges that we all face. People are complaining that they didn't have enough time to spend with their children because they're constantly working. Now they're home all the time. They're sick of being home with their kids. That's just an example, that I think of. This is a good opportunity to spend time with family, to rebuild our connections with other people. So it's not easy by any means. I know it's been a huge pivot and shift that a lot of people have had to deal with. So it's been a struggle, but I think how we look at things and how we frame things will really dictate how we see the world around us.
So what you're really talking about, and I just want to, that was beautiful, and I think what you're really talking about is finding meaning in suffering, and both of us, really love this book. This book is actually my favorite book of all time. It's called Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. And what he talks about is he was unfortunate enough to be a Polish Jew in the 1940s. Like how awful is it to exist in that time? And suffered in Auschwitz, went to 3 different concentration camps, and just suffered all the physical ailments you could possibly go through. Went through the worst of it all, and 1 out of 28 people did not make it out of there. Or 1 out of 28 people did make it out of there, but he was able to not only have the mindset to be able to make it out, to be able to overcome the physical suffering, but at the same time, he was a psychologist who ended up being a doctor there, and is essentially doing the role of Farris here. He just helping people. He was there to treat their physical ailments, but really what he noticed was that he could try to influence their mental, their psychological aspect, and trying to help them find meaning in the suffering. And I think his philosophy is all about that. And I definitely wanted to bring it back to you to ask you, how could people find meaning in their suffering? Not only suffering from biological problems that you deal with, but just in general life. How could they deal with the suffering that they're going through right now?
Yeah, I love that book as well. And it really has changed me a lot. And the talking points have been in that book. One of the things that he talks about, I don't even know if I'm saying it right, but I encourage people to check out the book first of all, but look up this whole concept that he talks about of logotherapy. Or logot. I'm not sure how
logotherapy.
Yeah. And it speaks to what I mentioned a little bit earlier, and why I think we all have it in us to sort of overcome things. We just need someone to help us realize it. So to answer your question, I think it's when you're going through something so traumatic, it's easy to play the role of victim. Like, why did this happen to me? How can this happen to me? I did everything right. But I think the number one thing that you have to do right away is to know that you're not alone. I think that's been one of the most powerful things. When people have a stroke, when people lose a loved one, when people break up in a relationship, they think that they're the only ones going through whatever they're going through. And I think once they're able to connect with other people, and know that they are not the only ones going through whatever they're going through, it empowers them and gives them the realization, okay, I can do this. That's why I think when we see stories of people overcoming such traumatic injuries, events, and we hear other people's stories, that's my goal with this book, is to hopefully help. If it helps one person, that's, it was worth all the time in the world to do this.
Yeah.
So I think once we realize that we're not the only ones going through what we're going through, that is the biggest thing that I think will help individuals start to pivot, shift their perspectives, and then try to get through whatever they're going through. It's work. It's intention. It has to be intentional. But there is a way to do it. And happiness definitely is something the science shows that we can work on those things, but it's not good enough to know that the science shows that. We have to be able to intentionally go out and try to do it. Just like working out. We know eating bad things is bad for us. We know exercising is good for us. We know smoking is bad for us. But if you go smoke, if you eat crappy food, if you're drinking nonstop, so knowing something is half the battle. We have to be able to sort of put the science into practice. And you have to find what works for you. What works for you, what works for me is going to be different in terms of happiness. And being true to who you are, going back to your point a little bit before, Nick, is like being true to who you are and what makes you happy, not what other people want for you or what other people think will make you happy, I think is an important part of that too.
It's so incredible. I mean, the things that you're talking about are so valuable, So the first thing you talked about there was gratitude, and the fact that, Viktor Frankl went through Auschwitz. I could break this bad habit, or I could go through this ailment. And, it really gets you thinking, the mind is the most important thing. Wim Hof he's known for his Wim Hof method. And, I think he's just so funny because he goes swimming shirtless in the Arctic, like crazy, like sub-zero temperatures, and he just goes swimming, and Most people don't even reach that level because they're always saying, I don't understand, I can't go through this, this is impossible, whatever. But if you see these people, if you see all these incredible people who have overcome all these problems with their body, you could really see how valuable the mind is.